Good morning, guys. So you should have your paper out from last class. I'm using my paintbrush to look at as well for details. You're gonna need an eraser, your pencil, your Sharpies. If you don't have Sharpies, you could actually use a pen as well. Someone let me know they didn't have Sharpies, and pens actually work really great. If you do have Sharpies and you possibly have different sizes, like I have a really fine point one and then like a regular Sharpie, those would be great for detailing later on when we're done actually putting in our details. So the last part that we left off, we finished the handlebar of our paintbrush, and we did connect it with this more of a curved line on the sides. And now we want to start adding the bigger details of our paintbrush. So I'm going to start from the top first, and my paintbrush isn't exactly so squared off as it shows here on my paper. You know how we did the square first? It's actually more, almost like more stretched out at the tip from all the bristles coming out. So with my pencil, I'm kind of just gonna go and start adding in those extra hairs that kind of pop out of it on each side. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you still want it to make it look like bristles, like hair. So really doing like a couple of lines on the sides will start to make it look like it's actual hair. And then it's also not as straight and flat as it shows here. So then I'm gonna go in and kind of start to make the little ruggedy lines for the top, because it's not perfect. All of those hairs aren't exactly perfect. So what I'm gonna do is kind of like almost make zigzag marks. And I don't necessarily like connecting them all. As you can see, I kind of left some spots in between the zigzags. So I make a zigzag and then I stop. And then I make another zigzag and then I stop. So I'm kind of making it seem like all of those hairs aren't actually connected. And it's all zigzaggy. I'll give you guys like 30 seconds to get that done. So you should have your bristle shapes. So we're not detailing the actual hairs in it, but we're doing at least the shape of the outside of your bristles. So it's more spread out because it's been used. The tip, you want to give it that zigzag texture, like it's almost like hairy, kind of, because it's not just soft and flat. I'm not going to use this line anymore, so I'm going to erase it. And I could actually erase these two lines that used to be part of our square. So now we're done with the shape of our bristles on top. So now looking at the details on my actual brush, I see that we have a giant piece of metal. That's what holds both the wood handlebar together and the bristles of it. So I'm going to start to add the detailing of this. I'm probably going to do it up to here maybe. Don't want to make it too big. Take away bristles. I could actually make it a little bit bigger because that's pretty thick, but I'll keep it. I'll do this first line. So this line, I'll probably make it be this detail right here, so I'm gonna add another line on top of it. Paintbrushes have really interesting details when you look at it. And when you start drawing like this, I remember when I first started drawing, I started looking at things more and more on how I could actually draw it, and all these tiny details that I would never notice before. And I added another line. This line is this detail right here. And then of course the last line of the bottom of the metal part is going to be right where this tip is on each side. So we have our metal part. And that's pretty good for big details. So we got the shape of our bristles down. We have our actual metal shape. We have the handlebar is pretty much good the way it is. So now I'm actually gonna start to add more details of my actual metal. And if you guys can see, I'll put it a little bit closer. I don't really, I mean, I guess I'll add some of those details of the numbers because that's how thick the brush actually is. So it says it's 4 inches, the width part of it. So I'll probably add that 4 inches mark. I'm gonna add these little drill marks, these two little circles. And then I'll also add these little diagonal lines, if you guys can see them right here. So I'm gonna add those more finer details to my metal of the paintbrush. So we got the 2 little drill holes, and this is gonna start to really make your paintbrush look more realistic with all these details. We have the 4-inch mark, and I'm doing it exactly how it says it on my paintbrush. It's got the little 4 and it's got the inches mark right there. I'm not gonna do this, the millimeter part, because it also has that on there. And then I'm gonna do those dashes or diagonal lines going all the way across, and it doesn't touch the top part of it, so I'm just gonna kind of have it stop right below it. Now I'm really taking my time. Don't rush it. I know even something as simple as diagonal lines seems like, oh, you can just rush through it, but I like taking my time. My metal part is done. I'll wait for those who are still working on that part, and then we're gonna jump to starting to add some of our hairlines. Just a couple, because then the rest you can just do with a Sharpie. So I'm just gonna add a couple of lines, like I said, just to really start adding those brush hair details. So with my pencil, I'm just gonna start adding some lines. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's actually better sometimes if your brush hairs aren't exactly perfect, especially since mine looks like it's been used and it's been spread out a little bit. So I'm gonna add a couple hairs down here at the bottom, just kind of going all over the place. And I'm using my feathery lines. So we got the metal part, and now we got the look, the feel of the texture of the hairs coming off of the metal part. And I'll also start to add some of the hairlines coming down from the tip. So down up there, maybe I can close it up a little bit. I'm gonna look and kind of touch the tip of some of my spikes and kind of just bring it down. So I'm touching a tip of a spike. Maybe I can close up a little bit more so you guys can see. Okay. So I got those hairlines down here. I just started at the bottom and went up. And then from up here, excuse me. Oh, I get such bad allergies in my art room because of all the paint smells. Okay. So what I was saying is those zigzag lines that are on top, what I'm doing is I'm finding the point of it and then just kind of making a line going down. Finding a tip, a line going down. And I'm not worrying too much about doing so much detail. Okay, so the last important part, we got the details of our brush. If you're still doing it, I didn't finish all of my details, but that's fine. I'll leave it like that. Is you want to add your shadowy part of your brush to make it really pop out. So for example, my brush right now, how I have it laid out, and I have a lamp on this side of my desk, the light is hitting it this way. So there's a lamp right here, the light is going this way, so it's hitting this area. The light is hitting this area, which means that the shadow is going to be cast right here on this side, and you can see it already that the shadow is right here. If the light were to be shown on this side, so if there was a lamp on this side of my desk, the shadow would be on the other side of my brush. So I'm going to go ahead and add like a copy line, kind of like a tracing line that just goes around my brush, and that's where I know that my black shadow is going to be, where I'm going to add with my watercolor and my Sharpie later. So pretty much is how I'm looking at this line, and I'm following it. See, it's just basically you're copying the same line and just floating around it. And then the shadows over here on the bristles are pretty cool, so I'm gonna, not perfect, and just leave it like that. So now we have where our shadow is gonna be at least outlined, and then next week on Tuesday we'll finish these up, we'll trace it, we'll color in our shadow. Hopefully you guys have watercolors and we'll be able to maybe add some texture, some color for the wood